All right, so I just got done watching Claire somewhere, and in this video, she's discussing the circumstances that have changed at the warehouse where she used to work. And we have another name yet to add to our list of Evil Corp names. She added the Death Star, which I thought was hilarious while I was watching this video. So this friend of her messaged her about increased surveillance and increased productivity within the corporation that she works for, right? Every place is a corporation in America. Even that McDonald's where you're putting the fries in the bag, little bro. That's all I do at my job. So I put the fries in the bag, little bro, at the Death Star. It's a great extra name. Now we've got Pound Town, Evil Corp, and the Death Star. Love it. I'm probably going to use the Death Star more often because it's new and it's funnier. So we're working at the Star, and she starts describing what's going on there. And you think about working people to the absolute worst possible solution, where the employee simply starts to break down mentally. I see this in my coworkers every day. They're all breaking down. They're all getting worked into oblivion. They can't handle it anymore. And when a worker has to call me on a Friday afternoon, screaming into the phone, I need someone to talk to. I need someone to talk to right now because I'm so stressed out by this crappy job that I need to talk to someone. I feel like I'm the emotional support for the entire corporation because I have these messages all the time from every single part of the Death Star, from the very bottom to the very top. You're talking about the tip of the spear. Friday, was it Friday? I think it's Friday, and I was rolling out to get something to eat for lunch when I had the head of HR call me up and like, MillennialSteam, you're the best part about working for this company. And I was like, oh my. This isn't a run of the mill sales guy or sales lady or a bottom level individual. I've been told that by so many people at this Death Star that I just blush when people say that. One of the last messages that I got from another lady who got terminated about 3 weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago now, the last phone call I had with her is, you're the only part of working at the Death Star that I'm going to miss. Everything else sucked. And I was just like, wow, I didn't realize I was that kind of popular. In fact, the day that she told me, I was sitting in the parking lot. It was right around 8 o'clock, and I took her call, and she told me she was leaving. And I reacted very badly to it. And it was one of those moments where she sometimes would just call me. A lot of people at the Death Star just call me because they want someone to talk to, someone that will listen. They just call me because, as she said, I just need my millennial steam time, which again, I don't understand these women. But that happens, and it happens frequently. And I can't tell you it happens more frequently with one part or another, but across the entire corporation. I'm probably one of the most popular people at the Death Star. And with that said, let's get into our opening monologue. They don't see you as a person anymore. You're a barcode with a pulse, scanned, tracked, and logged like inventory on two legs. Your value isn't measured by what you do, but how quickly you can do it while standing perfectly still on a pressure mat. And if you pause too long to breathe or blink, congratulations, you become a liability. This is the way that they treat people all over this country. You have to have meetings, you have to meet the metrics, or it automatically fires you out like a dead battery. And if you have to stay in a certain percentage, if you don't, it's not about a question of whether or not they're going to fire. It's only a matter of time till you get into the level, into the bracket of performance in which you are no longer an employee. You're a liability to them. So they have to make certain that they keep the flames right at your hiney. In fact, it's a conversation I had this past week with a coworker where he told me, I was talking to him and he said, you know what? I'm a paycheck to paycheck kind of person. If I don't get that next paycheck, my life falls apart because the paycheck has to come in just in time to pay the rent, just in time to make car payments, and just in time for you to stock up your ramen noodles. Because if at some point payroll gets messed up, it hurts all the people around you. Every single person that you're around at work is a person living paycheck to paycheck that doesn't have a thin dime extra. That's how we're expected to live under this kind of pressure, where you're trying to hold on to whatever you can with your nails dug in, but knowing full well that someone's pulling your tail. Oddly enough, I was walking back up to my apartment a few minutes ago, and this is completely off topic, but I just wanted to mention it. I was walking up to my apartment, and right beneath my apartment, there's a set of bushes. And in those bushes, there were two stray cats. No collars, no nothing, disheveled. Just two of them. Just laying underneath the bush like nothing else in the world mattered. And do you know what that reminded me of? That 100 yards away, there are two homeless people laying in the bushes, just waiting for something to happen. Exact same look on their face. They've got nowhere to go, nothing to eat, and no one gives a damn about whether or not the Arizona heat gets them. Ironically enough, I was sitting in the parking lot outside the Kroger's after the gym today, and it was slightly raining. Anyhow, let's get into talking point number one. The shift from tracking performance to tracking behavior through tools like pressure mats and task timing software isn't about efficiency. It's about total control. When your every step is logged, you're no longer a worker. You're your company property with a heartbeat. This didn't hit me more true than when I was working at Insight and one of my coworkers' girlfriends worked at a law firm. And at this law firm, they were very strict. All of the girls that worked as legal aides or whatever job the girls that who aren't lawyers do, they were constantly monitored by software. But so was their appearance. You had to look the part. No colored hair, no tattoos, smiling all the time. And it reminded me that these corporations, the Death Star, can tell you exactly how long your nails are going to be, what color lipstick you can wear, what hairstyles are acceptable. But not only that, she had to come in every day wearing a wig to cover up her dyed blue hair. And also, if you weren't typing on your keyboard for about 90 seconds, if there was a delay in your typing on your keyboard of 90 seconds, an email would be generated and sent to your boss telling them that your performance had dropped. 90 seconds, people. That's how bad it is. That's a sweatshop. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to weed out the people who they can get more efficiency out of. And let's put it this way. There's a lot of people in America that have turned to plantation era tactics because they're angry as AF about the way that they're being treated in the workplace. And you're not talking just unhappy. You're talking about an entire workforce out there. The 99% working at all the Death Stars across America that show up to work not only tired, broke, but angry, disgruntled. And believe me, these people do not care about your corporation. These people know what it's like to show up and have the Soul Suck 3000 attached to their rear end and productivity that needs to match an ominous drum by a guy wearing a leather vest at the top of the corporation. That's not, when you have an entire population that's this angry, of course there are going to be ripple effects across the entire country, if not the entire planet. Remember, on slave Earth, either you work or you're laying in the bushes. Talking point number 2. Systems like Continuum don't help workers, they help management justify firings. Falling behind isn't human anymore, it's data driven failure. These metrics don't improve performance, they just replace humanity with math. Absolutely. Every place that you go to now has metrics. In fact, when my friend got fired from her sales job last year, ironically in July, and she's never been able to find a job since. Since July, she's been collecting whatever government assistance she can get because she can't find a job. You're talking about a person who has a bachelor's degree and a person who's been accepted into medical school, and she hasn't been able to find any job. Thousands of applications, a few interviews, no one's called her back about a serious job. The only reason she's still able to continue living is because of my paycheck and because her parents help her out. Otherwise, she'd be out there under the bushes like a stray cat. Not because she doesn't want to work, but because there's nothing to work at. And the reason she got ousted was this: these performance metrics. That, and she wanted to have a life. She wanted to be able to go on vacation. She wanted time to hang out with her friends. She didn't want to be connected to the machine that didn't want the human aspect of the worker. The Death Star doesn't care that you're depressed at work. The Death Star doesn't care that you wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning having a panic attack because you know you have to go back. They don't care. When you show up at Pound Town at 8 a.m. on Monday morning, it's time to pound. And you don't have a say in what's going on. And more people like her are ending up in this situation where even the minimum wage jobs won't call them back. Why? Because they don't care if you're unemployed. They don't care if you have to answer a 500 question personality test in order to get a job at Walmart. They love wasting your time. And that's something that really bothered me in all of the years that I've spent searching for work, is that I didn't have a car. Going to a job interview was a traumatic event. It was sitting at bus stops, sometimes for hours, sitting on a crummy bus that stinks, wearing clothes that you can't afford to get clean. It's an ordeal. And then you get to a job and you realize this is all for show. They're trying to scare the other employees into working harder because that person sitting in the lobby could take your job. It's all about fear. It's all about productivity. And you, as a human being, you absolutely don't matter. When they fired her last year, because she was on a point system, they fired her because she wanted to see her parents. It came down to, you're not allowed to take PTO when you want it. You will take PTO when they tell you you can take it. And yesterday, while Mello and I were wandering around the city, she kept asking me about taking other jobs. And I'm like, how am I supposed to tell my boss that I can't come into work because I have another job? And that's really what it comes down to. When I worked at Walmart, the worst thing you could do to yourself is get another job. Because now when they call you on your days off because someone didn't show up, you don't answer the phone because you're at your other job. They expect 100% availability. Again, not a human being, just a barcode. And if you don't show up on those night shifts or on your vacation days, I mean, I've heard it be so bad that they'll call you because they forget. They don't remember what a barcode does. They don't remember that a barcode still has a family. They've actually called my friend while she was at home on the East Coast and told her she needed to show up for a shift at 8 a.m. the next morning, even though she was on vacation. And sometimes she wouldn't answer the phone, and then the messages would just start coming in faster and faster, text messages, phone calls, answer your phone. And she's like, no. Then you get back and they ask why you didn't pick up the phone. And you can tell them, I was on the East Coast on vacation. They don't care. That's not an excuse for not showing up to work. Talking point number 3. Leaving a job like that might mean financial struggle, but staying means but staying means surrendering your privacy to surveillance, peace, and identity. Real wealth is walking to the bathroom without being tracked. You're not lazy for choosing dignity. This comes down to what Biden was saying in the early part of his campaign for re-election. There should be dignity in work. You should be able to buy a home, even if you're working at a Circle K, a Radio Shack, or even that mom and pop store that sells sin on the corner. You shouldn't have to work at the Death Star until they find you 4 days later and you're not so ripe anymore. The audacity of it taking 4 days for someone to notice that your odor has changed into the non-living kills me sometimes, thinking that that old woman's family, no one bothered to check it where she was. The janitor had to find her as a non-ripe human being. And for a lot of us, that is the retirement plan. She probably didn't have any savings. She had no one that cared about her, and she worked until she was no more. That's not dignity. There's no dignity in getting old in our society. We're not getting paid enough to save for retirement. None of my coworkers have any money. I mean, literally, every day that I talk to them, they're either eating ramen or they're skipping lunch. And that's not one or two, that's the whole lot of them. And you ask yourself, it's like, how are all of these people broke, yet coming to work scared as hell that today might be their last day? That, to me, it boggles the mind. And this is on repeat across the entire country as layoffs are happening across every sector. Every day, thousands of jobs in America are going away. And our Cheeto in chief has the audacity to say that Americans are going to have to take uncomfortable jobs to make a living. You're going to replace Pedro in the fields, Pedro in the meatpacking industry, and even in the cleaning industry. They expect for you to roll down your pants and enter Pound Town for the rest of your life and accept those working conditions, accept those wages, while they have that same camera shoved up where you don't have any dignity. They're watching you, they're counting you, and they're seeing who or what can replace you. Not only is the surveillance there to make certain that you work harder, but they're actively working on ways in which they don't need you anymore. Once AI can do 90% of the jobs at any Death Star, then why would they pay you? Ask these self-checkout machines at any grocery store, when was the last day you had a day off, and it's none. Ask the workers inside of that same store, and they'll tell you. This morning after my workout, I walked into the Kroger's, and there was 2 people working registers. One at the self-checkout and one at Express. There were no other front-end employees. How do you run a major grocery store on a Sunday, which is naturally going to be busier because a lot of people do their shoppings on Sundays or Friday after work? But there were 2 people, and both those people were elderly. All right, let's get into our closing monologue. Let's see what ChatGPT made for us today. This isn't work anymore. It's digital slavery dressed in a neon vest. And the scariest part is how normal they want it to feel. But if you're waking up, if you're realizing your worth doesn't fit their metrics, then you're already ahead. You don't need to prove your humanity to an algorithm. Just don't let it convince you to erase it. I don't know how I feel about that. Erase it. We're not erasing anything. If anything, we are the plantation workers of the original colonies, except instead of wearing our plantation clothes, we're wearing uniforms that say McDonald's, Target, what else? Trader Joe's, Circle K, Car Wash, whatever mega Death Star that you can imagine, we're still on plantations. And that's never going to end because there's too much profit. There's too much money on the ground for a system to change to something better. And even if that system were to change to something better, they would still complain that they can't get workers to work. Every rich person in America is going to be singing, "Nobody wants to work anymore," while they rake in record profits.